He's the celebrated Godfather of the dead, without whom there would be no Resident Evil, no Walking Dead, and perhaps even no Zack Snyder. In today's Horror Hall of Fame, we take a look at the game-changing career of the man who turned eating brains into an art form, George A. Romero. A boy from the Bronx, Romero began his career shooting short films and TV commercials for none other than Fred Rogers. Yep, that one. Together with producer and friend John Russo, he would form his own production company in the late 1960s. Image 10 Productions would go on to produce Romero's breakthrough film, Night of the Living Dead.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Although hard to fully grasp by today's standards, the impact of Romero's first film in the pantheon of modern horror cinema cannot be overstated. The visual storytelling, visceral shocks, and undercurrent of social commentary immediately set Romero apart from his predecessors, and it was this blending of scares and substance that would become the director's trademark.
I thought I was creating a completely new monster. You know, the neighbors suddenly turned into flesh eaters, ghouls, and that's what I called them, ghouls in the film.
Night of the Living Dead would go on to earn back its budget countless times over, despite being criticized at the time for its excessive use of gore.
The killers are eating the flesh of the people they murdered.
Yeah, they're dead. They're all messed up.
In the wake of this early success, Romero would try his best to avoid being pigeonholed, taking on a variety of genres that range from romantic comedy to drama to science fiction.
From the director of Night of the Living Dead, Martin.
But Romero would eventually be enticed back to the series that made his name by a fellow horror filmmaker who had been watching from afar.
Dario Argento called me from Italy. He said, I will finance a zombie film if you want to make it. Do you have an idea? And I said, just so happens.
With the backing of Argento and a friend within a major Pennsylvania-based retail business, Romero was able to carry out principal photography for his new film at the Monroeville Mall.
This situation must be controlled before it's too late. They are multiplying too rapidly.
Dawn of the Dead.
This time taking aim at consumerism, Romero's Zombies in a Mall premise proved to be the perfect setting in which to drop a new set of fleshed-out characters.
We got this, man. We got this by the ass.
Much like Night of the Living Dead, the true effectiveness of Dawn was how it allowed the viewer to become invested in the story, to the point where the characters' deaths felt more like losing a loved one than just another zombie snack. Shot on a budget of $1.5 million, the film would go on to earn over $55 million internationally, with Argento releasing his own cut of the film in Europe, along with an original soundtrack from the progressive rock band Goblin. The success of Dawn made a third entry in the series inevitable, with Romero again changing up the setting and characters for 1985's Day of the Dead.
I think this Day of the Dead is more action-packed. Almost everyone is a monster unto himself in this film.
This time tackling science and the military, the film might not have been as highly regarded as Romero's first two outings in the series, but in the years since its release, critics have acknowledged just how influential its bleak tone was for the future of the genre. It was also during this productive period that Romero found himself working more and more within his beloved Pennsylvania, with the likes of Night Riders and Monkey Shines, and Stephen King's horror anthology Creepshow, which would become a precursor to Romero's long-running television series, Tales from the Dark Side.
A place that is just as real, but not as brightly lit.
The 90s would see Romero once again working with some familiar faces. First on the script for the 1990 remake of Night of the Living Dead, with makeup and special effects whiz turned director Tom Savini, followed by a new collaboration with Dario Argento on an adaptation of Edgar Allan Poe's Two Evil Eyes. As interest in the zombie genre continued to fade, Romero would once again adapt the work of Stephen King for The Dark Half, as well as his own original story for Bruiser, neither of which would set the box office alight.
Bruiser.
Although he very nearly directed the first entry in the Resident Evil franchise, Romero would steer clear of zombies for the better part of 20 years, but the Paul W.S. Anderson-helmed film would inadvertently bring the genre back from the dead. Along with Edgar Wright's zombie rom-com, Danny Boyle's bleak 28 Days Later, and Zack Snyder's well-received Dawn of the Dead remake, this period of the early noughties delivered the shot in the arm Romero needed to get his long-dormant series back on its feet. He would go on to release Land of the Dead in 2005.
Zombies, man. They creep me out.
The film was admired for its wicked takedown of corporate greed and classism in America. It would prove enough of a success for Romero to make at least 2 more entries in the series, 2007's Diary of the Dead, which adopted a found footage style, and 2009's Survival of the Dead, which would sadly go down as the director's last official cinematic outing.
Filmmaker George Romero has died.
Filmmaker George Romero.
He lost his battle with lung cancer today at the age of 70.
He was 77.
Right up until his tragic death on May 14, 2017, Romero was still working towards completing his sprawling zombie saga. The timeline of events within Romero's world unfolded over a 15-year period, with the film output only making up a fraction of this timeline. Several more of Romero's unproduced works would find their way into the world in the years following his death, including a previously unreleased film from 1973, but the greatest mark will always be left by the man himself, a mark on a genre that will forever be living in his shadow, and a series of films that will never die.